Hello, everybody, and welcome in to another episode of the Couch GMs Podcast. It is Thursday, April 22nd, 2026. I'm your host, George Kirk, joined by the one and only Cody Roadcap. And I said April 22nd. That only means one thing. One day away from Cody's favorite day of the NFL calendar, the NFL Draft. How you doing?
Second favorite day. My favorite day is anytime the Packers are in the Super Bowl, but I've only got to experience that once. So this is probably my favorite yearly, I wouldn't even say day, weekend in the NFL calendar.
I know you were a little behind on the draft prep probably because you were not as excited with the Packers not having a first-round pick, but I know even over the last week you've been starting to geek out like you usually do.
Yeah, it's been fun to get caught up. I wish I would have been, a little bit more involved, maybe have a little bit better analysis. You'll see on the draft a little bit later today. I feel really confident in the players in the top 15. I feel okay getting to the first round. It can be a little hit or miss as we get more into the second round, but hey, at the end of the day, it only takes one team. Monte Mack, no matter what, get your draft day movies ready. It's going to be a great time.
Yes, sir, it is. And Cody already said it. We're doing 2 rounds of mock draft this year. We're going to break down round 1 like we did last year if you were with us. If you weren't, make sure you subscribe and you hang out with us this whole entire NFL season. But and then round 2, he'll put up his second round mock, and we can do a little bit of reacting to some individual teams. But should be fun. Make sure you're following us at the Couch GMs, Facebook, X, Instagram, TikTok, even more you from the show. We are live on Thursdays at 6:30 East on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. To get in and join the show live, put some comments in, ask some questions. We are always happy to engage with you as we move through the live show. And I don't want to take too much time, but why don't we see what's happening? I threw this one in here on the rundown before your draft just because it happened to pop up in my inbox soon before the show. It's official. NFL Fantasy is going to be merging with ESPN Fantasy. I have not had any more details. If you kind of click on the link in the email, it just takes you to ESPN Fantasy where you can sign up. So I'm assuming anything on NFL Fantasy is just going to stagnate, and then you're going to have to make an ESPN account. But since we're a fantasy-focused podcast, I thought it was good to mention.
No, absolutely. That kind of stinks. ESPN is not my favorite fantasy app. They're not a sponsor of the show. If they want to be, maybe it'll change my opinion. Anyways, I would like to know if the email said, because I didn't see it, you're the commissioner of our league of record, anything about data for team, how long you have to access your data. Will that live for a while as people try to transition and want to keep their history books and their records and stuff like that?
The email literally just had the 2 logos, and it said the home of NFL, the official home of fantasy, and it had a link that took you to a join page, and that was all I saw. So we don't have much information yet.
Interesting.
But I think that was basically the announcement that NFL Fantasy is not going to be a standalone product anymore, as we kind of speculated. I think Cody's digging deeper right now.
I'm so sorry. A video started playing in my headphones, and I couldn't hear a word you said. And I was just frantically trying to figure out which tab it was on. And I got so many tabs on here, getting ready to do the mock draft. Do you want to retell me? The listeners are probably get your stuff together.
You're good. It's always funny. No, I basically was just there's just that link in there that takes you to a page to sign up for ESPN. There's no other information. We don't really have anything, but that just seemed like the official announcement that NFL Fantasy is not going to be a standalone product anymore.
Yeah.
Which
and then
I
guess the other thing, we're going to talk more about this when we do the draft, because we are going to go one by one for the first round, each pick. We might do a couple groups, but we're going to at least talk about every team in their first round pick. But over the weekend, Dexter Lawrence did get traded to the Cincinnati Bengals for the 10th overall pick. That definitely shakes up mock drafts. If we would have did this last week, it would have been invalid. But that's kind of where we're at right now with that one. And unless there's anything else you want to mention about it, which I think you should, just maybe 10 seconds worth of talking about it.
Oh, just 10 seconds worth of filler. So that obviously it was for, I believe, pick 10 in the draft. So a big deal there. Cincinnati deciding to take what I guess they would consider the safe pick, and getting the stud as opposed to not trusting their draft process, which I can't 100% say I blame them. But the 10th pick is still a pretty rich.
It's definitely rich. for a guy that turns 29, you give a contract extension, all that stuff. It's definitely a little bit rich, but I think that just goes to show like the level of this draft. And I also think it's like the rumors of Joe Burrow wanting out only are going to get warmer if they have another bad season. So going to get veterans and trying to put a team together to do something, or maybe he ends up replacing Matt Stafford when he's retired and he goes out west, and Sean McVay gets Joe Burrow, and the Rams are just good for a while.
Yeah, that's also very possible, but I don't think it's going to be to the Rams. I think that's the dream scenario that people want to see because it would make sense as the successor for Matt Stafford.
But maybe it'll be a rookie, maybe it'll be Anthony Richardson, maybe it'll be someone we talk about in the mock draft. Full transparency. There's a spelling error. There's a lot of them in this video, this bumper, because this is why AI is not quite great enough, but we're going to play it anyways. You ready to get in this mock draft?
Let's do it.
Your team is now on the clock.
It was actually very good till the end. I was like, oh, actually, I don't know if he's right.
Yeah, I just saw the end, and I was like, oh, and I was like, I don't have time to cut it and stuff like that, or I would have just not had the audio and just had it cut at the last thing. But yeah.
No, hey, it's all good. I mean, Cody, you put a lot of work into this mock. I am going to give you the slide for not having the bumper, but let's get into this. I'm excited to see where you have some guys. I may have a sneak peek on some of these picks, but I did not look super deep, so I could kind of react on the fly with you.
No, I appreciate that. So we are going to go through this live. I do have a preliminary mock draft that I put together to give George a little bit of heads up, but some things like question marks, maybe he'll, change my mind about some things, maybe not. We're going to talk it out here. We said we're going to go through each and every pick. That's the plan. We're going to start with the number 1 overall pick, Fernando Mendoza. We don't need to talk about this. This has been the same pick since they got it, since Indiana went on a run, and we're going to lock that one in because that's out of the way. They're going to take all 8 minutes, not 10 this year. It's only 8, but they're going to take all 8 minutes to make this pick. But we know it's Fernando. Now the draft begins.
Exactly. And you've said multiple times, I mean, you said today you feel pretty confident with your top 15, but this draft is kind of up in the air. So maybe it's not super exciting yet, but it is going to be very interesting who you pick as this round goes on. So
yeah,
Jets, number 2.
For transparency, when I said I feel good about like the top 15, top 20, that was more of like the players that will probably go there. I am not confident whatsoever in the order.
Yes.
I don't even know who's going 1 or 2. There's a lot of talk. I think it's between the 2 edge rushers, David Bailey, Avril Reese, Bailey out of Texas Tech, Avril Reese out of Ohio State. And it kind of reminds me a little bit, if you remember just a few years ago, the no quarterback draft where it was the Jaguars first, Lions second. There was the debate between Trayvon Walker, the high upside, the traits, Aiden Hutchinson, the proven guy. Has he reached his ceiling kind of debate? Aiden Hutchinson was able to take it to a next level. We're having a very similar situation. David Bailey's the proven guy. Ever Reese is the project, the projection, but he's an athletic freak, all the tools and whatnot. He looks like he's going to be a player in this league for a long time. All that to say, even right now, I'm going back and forth on how I'm going to pick this one. I know there's a lot of buzz around David Bailey being the pick. I think it would make sense because, Aaron Glenn needs to win. He might want a more proven guy, a guy that could more make an impact day one. But I just think the tools, the intangibles, this favors Avril Reese, and that's where I'm ultimately going to go with my pick.
I know you're talking about like the save your job thing for the coaching staff there, but I do think Reese is who I would lean here, and it feels more like the Jets move. Maybe that's just me being the downer about the Jets and me like they wouldn't take the safe pick. Not saying that Reese isn't going to be better than Bailey.
No, yeah. Like I said, there's the chance that they're good, and that's where we go from there. And, if I'll say this, if they take David Bailey, I think this makes the Cardinals pick a whole lot more interesting because I think they would be in line for Avril Reese. I think they're a lot of buzz late, which when buzz is late, it tends to be there seems to be fire to the smoke. Mm-hmm. A lot of talk about they might be interested in Jeremiah Love. They have him as the best prospect on the board. There's other people that favor that. Does he go here? They desperately need offensive line help. If Avril Reese is on the board, which he is not in our scenario, I think teams like the Saints, the Chiefs would make a big splash. Like I think the Chiefs could give up 9 and 29 to come up to 3 and get Avril Reese if he's there. I don't know if they do that for David Bailey, but that's kind of where I'm thinking of that. And that's kind of leads me into my number 3 pick, where I do have my first trade. There is trades in this mock draft, and this is not fully predictive. This is a hybrid between predictive, what would make the most sense, and what I would like to happen. So it's kind of a little bit of blend of that. I tried to, there might be a few more trades just because that's more fun to try to predict and guess and just talk through some different things here. Mm-hmm. And I'm going with the Dallas Cowboys, making a trade up here. So we're going to see it live because I got to do that on the trade. They have 2 first.
12?
Yep. So I'll just keep this in mind while I talk through this on the trade. So Dallas is going to trade with Arizona. So I have to hit the next button. And while they do that, I'm going to give them both picks, 12 and 20, to go up to number 3. And they're going to get 104 back as well. So when you propose the trade here, you'll see the value. So this one is a little bit uneven. The rest of the trades will probably be within 5 value points, but there is the extra cost to get up into the top 5. So that's why I'm okay with this one being a little bit less and being a little bit more realistic. I think if Dallas could find a way to keep 20, maybe pair their 2nd or 3rd round pick, they would love to do that. But I will go ahead and make the selection there. Before I make the pick, I do have a quick sidebar question. In my hypothetical world, and you're like, Cody, shut up. You're going to take forever if you talk this much. But once we get past the first 5, it'll go a little bit quicker. Mm-hmm. If Avril Reese falls, I think Dallas would still be making this move.
Okay.
I also think...
So you're not thinking they're looking edge?
I think Avril Reese would put them over the edge, but I'm not going David Bailey, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think there's 2 players here. That's why, and they're willing to go up to 3.
Okay.
However, if Avril Reese is here, I think Kansas City would go up as well. So if you were
honestly, you would think Arizona would have a better chance trading with Kansas City because they would get pick 9 instead of 12.
Yeah, but on the other side, you would get 29 instead of 20. So
Fair.
It was just like an interesting thought. Like in the GM situation, Avril Reese isn't here. I took Kansas City off the board for now. I know he's a little bit lower on this big board. There's a lot of buzz around him. It might be a lot to give up for a linebacker, but Sonny Styles seems to be a special prospect. Dallas loves their linebackers. He would be a big name, a cornerstone in their defense. He's a good tackler. He can, blitz from the linebacker position, and he's good against the run. And Jerry Jones told us all last year when he traded Micah Parsons, that's why he wants to get better against the run. And Sonny Styles will help him do that. So big splash to kick it off. Sonny Styles going number 3.
I do think it's a really big splash to move up for a linebacker at pick 3, but if there's a team that's going to do it, it does feel like it's Dallas, because you did talk about them liking their linebackers. Traditionally, they've always had those, big tackle, big play linebackers, and Sonny Styles is the one guy in this draft that could fit that.
Absolutely. All right, so now we got pick 4 here with the Tennessee Titans, and there is a lot of buzz with them and Jeremiah Love as well. And I think Jeremiah Love could easily be their pick here. If David Bailey goes 3 to Arizona and Arizona stays in picks because Dallas doesn't want to give up that much, and they think they could trade with the Browns at pick 6 or the Saints at pick 8 to get Sonny Styles, they might do that instead. And Arizona goes David Bailey, they're probably taking Jeremiah Love. But because they got a defensive-minded head coach, Robert Saleh, I think he's going to want to go on the defensive side. He might have wanted Sonny Styles to come in and be his Fred Warner, his Bobby Wagner from the linebackers that have meant so much to his systems over the last years. But because David Bailey is still there, they get that high-end edge rusher for their new defensive-minded head coach.
I do really think there's a good shot they go Jeremiah Love in the real draft, but if I had to say what I think their best pick is, I would have to say if Bailey's there, it might have to be Bailey. Like, it makes more sense for them to go out there and get a solid defensive piece than it does like running backs. I hate saying this because they're not if you get a solid running back, but running backs can be a luxury, and they're not bad at the running back position.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. I think you might be able to get a running back in the 3rd or 4th round that has maybe they're not as special of the talent as Jeremiah Love, right? Like there's a reason why even at the running back position, he is considered 1B, 1C type of player in this draft, a top 3 prospect overall. So I think it could go there. And if we were just listening to today, I don't know if Arizona's willing to move off that pick and not pass on him. There is a lot of smoke coming out about that, but I didn't want to, change things drastically from where I was thinking just because of, some news that came out today and how much of that could be playing into it. I would also say in the alternate reality, some of that news could be like, could we see the Tennessee Titans we're going to move up one spot to guarantee Jeremiah Love and then let the Cardinals get an extra pick and they're going to fall back into David Bailey. That's why they're talking all that. A lot of hypotheticals, but let's stick with the mock draft we're going here. We have the Giants on the clock now at pick 5. They are here with their first of 2 top 10 picks after that Dexter Lawrence trade we talked about at the top of the show. Couple names I would throw out here for them. I think Jordan Tyson, there's been a lot of buzz. They're really interested in him, but is that a guy they might look forward to more down at 10? Jeremiah Love, they've been linked to, but you talk about it. They have some other running backs. Is it the necessary? Do they go with the top offensive tackle with Francis Mayoga? I did not say his last name right. I apologize. Or do they go with safety Caleb Downs? You know how important Kyle Hamilton was in the Baltimore system. Caleb Downs is a slightly different player, but he is a versatile all-around, can do everything, leader of the defense type of safety. And I went back and forth with this one a bunch of times, and I just couldn't move on from Caleb Downs. Again, I know the safety isn't the highest thing, but if you remember back to the beginning of this offseason, the thing that kept going in my head was we knew Harbaugh was going to be the head coach, but it took a week. It felt like maybe 2. It probably didn't take 2, but it felt like 2 weeks for him to sign the deal because they were working out the details. And I think it was how much say he had in the draft. I think he's going to fall in love with Caleb Downs, and the Giants are going to go there. Might be a little too early. Might be a guy they should have tried to get at 10 and just take the receiver. But I'm going to go ahead and give them Caleb Downs.
No, I don't hate that pick there. It feels like a Harbaugh type of pick, and just seeing how he's built the Ravens in the past, they have, the young trending quarterback. They have a solid run game as long as they can get Scatterboot back at 100%. Obviously, that was a bad injury, and they can kind of piece things around it before. They brought in Isaiah Likely. They're going to find ways to pass the ball at least a little bit. They need to, but I think he wants to bring a more defensive culture to New York, similar to what he did in Baltimore. So taking a defensive player here makes the most sense. And I don't think that going to Bain at edge makes as much sense for them as going Downs, even though it does seem rich to take a safety at 5. So I don't mind the pick.
All right. So one thing I wanted to point out, we just had 3 people from the Ohio State go in the top 5.
Yep.
That is impressive. And we've been 4 straight defenses after the quarterback. So defensive heavy. Now I think we're going to get into some offense here with the Cleveland Browns. Now I think they would consider a tackle here, whether it's Francis out of Miami. There's been some buzz about them liking Caleb Proctor. There is also a Kalen Proctor. Very confusing defensive tackle later in the draft. Anyways, I think offensive tackle would make a ton of sense for them. They kind of need that position. But they also need wide receiver help for their quarterbacks and stuff like that. Now, I've been on the record saying I think Jordan Tyson is the best wide receiver in this class. I would take him here. If I was taking a wide receiver, I would be taking him first. I'm not the Cleveland Browns. They do a lot of things I don't agree with, so I'm going to give them Carnell Tate.
Carnell Tate is still pretty widely considered by quite a few people the top receiver in this draft. Jordan Tyson's been getting a lot of buzz lately, so I think that's probably partly why we have him grouped this high. There were times even a few weeks ago I feel like he was going bottom half of the first round. So If this does happen, all I can say is whoever has pick 2 in our dynasty draft, please just take Carnell Tate, and then I can go ahead and take Jordan Tyson at pick 3.
Yeah. Or maybe I'll give you like 3 first-round picks for him or something like that. I don't know. We'll figure that out. Maybe we'll talk about that.
Maybe we'll propose a rule that you can trade 5 and you give me 5.
Ooh, not a bad idea. We'll talk about where these players might go in Dynasty when we do our first Dynasty mock draft next week in terms of fantasy. But back to the NFL draft that happens tomorrow. Pick 7. The Commanders are running the card in.
Yeah, 100%. Know
that
exactly where this pick is going to go.
Jeremiah Love is here. Now, this is one, I'll be 100% honest. This was like a dream scenario that maybe I was trying too hard if I was doing a little bit of self-scout to get Jeremiah Love here. If you asked me, like, if you were like, which picks don't you feel the best about? It would be like Jeremiah Love falling all the way to 7. Like, yeah. I think for him to go past both Arizona, Tennessee, and New York seems very rich this late in the process, but you can't say never because I just found a scenario where it didn't. So, but they get Jeremiah Love, it would be a great fit for them, and so on.
I feel like when it comes to like even ideal fits, not only does it make sense that Love is an ideal fit in Washington, I almost feel like taking defense for like the 3, 4, 5 teams makes more sense than taking Jeremiah Love where they're at. I do think if we're not going to have him fall all the way to 7, the place where he does make the most sense is going 3 to Arizona. So if Arizona does trade out in real life, I think this is where it makes sense for him to fall the most. But if he gets taken at 3 to Arizona, if they don't trade out, I think that would be my second most likely scenario for things that I think would work best for the team.
Yeah. And speaking of Arizona, I did have them considered having them trade back up, not for Jeremiah Love, although that would be interesting. But if you remember back to the CJ Stroud draft, CJ Stroud went 2. The Texans at that time also had pick 12. They traded up with all the way to 3 with the Arizona Cardinals but then the Cardinals went from 12 to 6 to draft their left tackle, Paris Campbell. Paris Campbell's the wide receiver. Paris Johnson is the offensive tackle. Yep. Okay. Too many names in my head right now. But speaking of trades, that's because we have another one here. We are having the team that uses a naughty word when it comes to picks making their way up. That is the Los Angeles Rams. They're going up here. This could be 100% luxury. I don't remember what I gave them, so I might go back and forth. I think it was 13 and 61, and I gave them something else. Was it 207? Oh no, I offered them. So maybe that's what I did. I got something back. There we go. That was my trade.
That makes sense. Okay.
So they give up pick 16 and 31 to go up to get pick 8, and they get pick 132.
Say that back again. Pick 13 and 61.
Oh, did I say something different?
You said 16 and 31.
Great. All right. So pick 13 and 61 goes to the Saints for pick 8 and pick 132. And they jump the Kansas City Chiefs. They jump the New York Giants for my favorite wide receiver in this draft. They get their wide receiver to pair with Nuka Nakua long term. It'll be a big 3 this year. I don't think they're going to move on from, Devontae Adams just because they do this. I think that ship has sailed. But they're going to get Jordan Tyson. They're going to have their guy of the future, and they moved up 5 spots to get him and beat the Kansas City Chiefs and the Giants. So I think both would be interested.
Yeah, those are 2 teams definitely that are going to be looking for a wide receiver. There's even a chance that, like, say, the Giants try to move up from 10 to jump Kansas City to get Jordan Tyson if they don't take him at 5 or take a receiver at 5. But I can't say I'm surprised you have the Rams moving up here. I am a little bit, but the Rams and first-round picks, they either don't have them or they're, go all out on it. I was going to follow up and ask, are you sure that would not mean Devontae Adams on the move? Because even if it doesn't happen now, like, there's going to be wide receiver movement later in the offseason. We're basically expecting A.J. Brown to get moved in June 1. doesn't mean that then you're going to see Devontae Adams get moved in a similar situation too as we get closer to the season.
I don't think so. I think they're literally just putting as many pieces around Matthew Stafford to try to go win a ring. I think if there was
it could be the final run or one of the last two.
Yeah. So I think that's kind of where they're at. I think they would like to go edge rusher, but kind of like the edge rushers at this point are kind of off the table. They've gone, and I don't think they have the ammunition or the desire to go all the way up to get a Bailey or an Avril Reese. They brought in the cornerbacks. Like, they have the luxury to go get a guy like Jordan Tyson who could be a difference maker long term. And again, it sounds like he is on the path to recovery. We didn't talk much about it, but Puka did have to go into a rehab facility this offseason. There's been some other issues around him over the last 6 months. Hopefully those are well and behind him, but this also gives them a safety blanket if they end up going, you know what, maybe we don't want to commit to Puka Nacua long term. We get a guy like Jordan Tyson.
That makes sense too, giving them an out. And I know it doesn't hurt to keep both of them on board with Tyson, because we know the biggest hit on him is he's expected to be a great wide receiver, but there's injury concerns with Jordan Tyson.
Yeah.
So
all right, pick 9. I think Jordan Tyson is 100% in play here. Maybe it's Malachi Lemon if they want to, just go with the wide receiver train. But they traded away McDuffie. They lost Justin Watson. I think corner seems too easy for them, so it probably won't happen in the real draft, but I'm going to give them Mansour Delane, cornerback out of LSU, start, rebuilding that defense.
Makes sense to me. Feels like they'd want to take the splash move and take a receiver, but I have no arguments.
Yeah, and I did think here, too, about, is this a spot that maybe a team like Arizona would pop back up to get the first offensive lineman in the draft out of the way? They did not. I mean, there's part of me that wants to go back and do that, but I'm not going to do that. We already made the pick because I think as we close out the top 10 here and start to pick up this pace, I'm going to have the Giants, because Tyson is gone, because Sonny Styles was gone and they already took Caleb Downs. I think they're just going to – Harbaugh wants to, build up those trenches. There isn't a defensive tackle here that they were willing to take to replace a Dexter Lawrence, 1-for-1. So I think they're going to take the best offensive lineman, Francis Mauioga. I'm never going to be able to pronounce his name. Big offensive tackle, can kick into guard in a pinch, especially in this first couple years, as they do have some tackles on the outside, but can also bounce out long term. So Giants get an offensive lineman here, and it just feels like another Harbaugh pick.
That's exactly how I was going to describe it. That feels like a Harbaugh pick. So even though it's not the flashy pick, yes, I like it.
Alrighty, so let me just recap the top 10 for you all quick, and then we're going to pick up the pace. I'm going to do a couple in a bunch, and then we can just talk about them all together. Fernando Mendoza went 1. Avril Reese went 2. We had a trade. The Cowboys coming all the way up to 3 with the Cardinals to get Sonny Styles. David Bailey fell to the Titans, and they jumped on that. Caleb Downs, the safety from Ohio State, went 5 to the Giants. Offensive gets on the board outside of quarterback with the Browns at 6 and Carnell Tate. Jeremiah Love falls to 7, and everyone in Washington is doing handstands, jumping jacks, whatever you want to call it. The Rams get involved with the offensive explosion and trade up for Jordan Tyson. We head back to defense with Mansour Delane heading to Kansas City and Francis Mauioga from Miami to the Giants to round out the top 10.
I like your top 10, and this is also a quick reminder, if you are listening in your car on draft morning, that's great, but if you get to your destination or you're just watching on a computer, feel free to pop over to YouTube and you can watch this on video as Cody is making the picks on the screen, give you a little easier time to follow.
Yeah, absolutely. Great reminder here. All right, so like I said, we're gonna start doing a couple bunch picks here. That's gonna start with the Miami Dolphins. Now, everybody from Miami is like, you got to take Malachi Lemon. I don't know why I called him Malachi either. I apologize. They need a wide receiver. You've all seen the jokes. You've all seen the different things about them. And, who is Malik Willis even going to throw to after they traded Jalen Waddle? I hear that. I think Jermod McCoy, the cornerback, is in play. as well. They need a cornerback in this situation as well, but he has some red flags on medical surrounding his knee. I don't know if they go there. This is Green Bay South. Green Bay likes the trenches. Again, not really a defensive tackle here, and I think it's going to kick off. The Giants kicked it off, and we're going to continue this offensive line run, and they're going to go Spencer Fano, the tackle out of Utah. Arizona is going to see them and say, oh, man, these offensive tackles are flying. Now, I didn't know which one to give them. I think in this range, after Font, I mean, really, I think any of these tackles can go in any order. I'll say that. I think there is a divide, but some people might fall in love with one player, someone's versatility. There's a lot of can only play right tackle, can play maybe kick into guard. And there's a lot of that for, a fantasy football mind first, an offensive line. That's hard to judge. So I ended up giving them Monroe Freeling. I think he is a tackle that could also play guard, but I think he is probably the next best player on the list. So 3 tackles in a row to kick it off. And then this last pick before I let George jump in, we're going to end the offensive lineman run for now. And the New Orleans Saints moved back, got extra picks, and took the guy they probably would have taken at 8, but he has only fell this far because he has historically short arms, but he is a productive, high-energy pass rusher. They need that to pair him with Chase Young. I think it's a good fit, staying down south, and they get Reuben Bain Jr.
I think Miami fans would be upset with that pick, but I almost feel like this is the meme where it's the quarterback being protected and throwing to the lesser-name receiver versus getting sacked while Mekhi Lemon is just running downfield open. So I do think if the Dolphins are going to rebuild, they're going to have to build it from the trenches out.
Jen, you're crazy.
I could still see her.
I know. That's why I said you can just walk next time because they could see you crawling. Yes. Yes, they could.
Yep, I could.
That's my wife. She's not normally home yet. She normally is working in that hospital. So, surprise, I have a studio audience tonight as she runs back. But let's pick us up. I'm with you. It was really hard to pass on a wide receiver here, but I just think they might go offensive lineman, protect Malik Willis, build up a strong run game with Devon Achane. I feel like the game plan is going to be have Willis throw less than 20, 25 times a game, at least to start. And let's build up this offensive line, get Achane going, get Willis on the edges.
To be totally locked in with keeping Achane. They made that pretty clear. So
let's build up the trenches. We'll get your wide receiver in the second round. Hint, hint. All right.
Ooh.
We have the Baltimore Ravens. They're on the clock. They are going back to the offensive line trade, not with the tackle, a guy that's more considered the top interior offensive lineman. Obviously, they lost Linderbaum this year, not a center that can play guard, and they need help at the guard spot as well if this ad would come away.
They did lose a guard as well, if I'm not mistaken. To
yes.
New York, I believe. So
I couldn't remember his name, but I knew they lost him. So they need interior help in a big way.
Yeah.
They get the best guy. We're just going to call him Vega, interior offensive lineman from Penn State. And that brings me to my next trade.
Ooh.
The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they get a phone call from the Cleveland Browns here. If you remember, when they were on the clock here, I mentioned the name Caleb Proctor. He's still on the board here. So the Cleveland Browns are calling Tampa Bay to jump the Jets, to jump the Lions, and to jump, those would be the two teams, the Lions especially. I think the Lions might even be on the phone at this spot trying to get up, not have a team jump them, because I think Caleb Proctor is a guy that a lot of people are going to like, and don't be surprised if he goes in the top 10. He's just a high variance prospect at the moment, but there's a lot of people that really like his upside. Some people think he is the best in this class. But anyways, let's get to this pick here for what we did to get them. So the Browns have a second first-round pick thanks to the Travis Hunter trade last year. So they're only moving up 9 spots. To do that, they're going to give up 70 and 149, and they're going to get 15 and 40 or 15 and 195. So just so you can see that on the screen, 100% even trade value. Cleveland sends 24, 70, and 149 for pick 15 and 195. They're on the clock, and they take Caden Proctor, which gives us our fourth offensive lineman taken in the last 5 picks.
It feels like how this first round is going to go is exactly like that. So maybe it's not the most exciting to watch, but it's going to be, if a lot of these guys hit, it's going to be a very hopeful draft for the trenches for a lot of these teams that need it. And then you're going to be looking for the kind of breakout studs for the more established teams later in the round.
Yeah, I think after we get past that first hour of commercial-free NFL draft coverage, we're going to get commercials and offensive lineman picks. That second hour might be a little rough, but hang in there. The process can be worth it. For you Jets fans out there, do I have another home run pick for you?
Oh.
Originally, I had them trading up with the Saints to take this guy, but then I was like, I don't think the Rams would miss out on the Jordan Tyson thing. I have them taking Mekhi Lemon here at pick 16. Some people have him as, one of the top, have him ahead of Carnell Tate, have him ahead of Jordan Tyson. The Jets get him at 16. The Jets need everything. Get a guy to play with Garrett Wilson. I think he was an interesting name that could go to 10 with the Giants if they wanted to replace the Wan'Dale Robinson that they're losing to pair with Malik Neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
I think that would be an interesting one too. But again, building up the offensive line, that just feels like a hardball pick. The Jets get Mekhi Lemon, and they have another pass catching option there. Any thought? That's kind of a big splash. I'll let you.
Yeah. I think the Jets are definitely wide receiver needy. I'm interested to see if they would move up to get that pick, but if he falls right into the lap at 16, it seems like a slam dunk to me too.
Yeah. I think too, like if the board fell this way, which is kind of why I had the Browns trading up with the Buccaneers. Like the Lions are kind of like the last of the offensive linemen need in the 10 to 20 range. Everyone can use offensive linemen, but the ones that are probably going to go hard after it. So jumping them was important, but because the way the board was falling, I don't think the Jets will be a team to back out if Lemon is sitting on the board. So they had to go up one more spot. But
yeah,
speaking of the Lions, they need offensive lineman help. They're going to get Caleb Lomu, Spencer Fano's teammate out of Utah. Shout out to Utah getting 2 offensive linemen drafted in the top 17. This pick has been made pretty much everywhere I've seen. It just feels like a no-brainer. Maybe it'll shock us on draft night and he won't be there, or somebody will trade up and avoid him, or they won't actually take him. But Dylan Thieneman, wow, could he learn how to pronounce names? Safety out of Oregon. He is a really good prospect. Some people have him as a top 10 prospect in this draft, and the Vikings need a replacement for Harrison Smith. And it just feels like a 1-to-1. That defense is better with a guy like Harrison Smith. Big shoes to fill, but Dylan Thieneman seems up to the task. Then one of my players that I really enjoy watching, I don't know where he goes, how high, how early, but I think it would make a ton of sense to get Bryce Young, a little bit of a fun pass catcher. I think we even talked about this last week when we talked about positions and good fits. Another Oregon player, tight end Kenyon Sadiq, goes here to pick 19. Anything you want to add?
With a couple other wide receivers right around this area, I was intrigued to see if you were going to send a wide receiver to Carolina. I do think Sadiq is a great fit there, and it almost fits the kind of strategy I was talking about last week, where it's like you're trying to find an offensive playmaker. If that offensive playmaker ends up being a running back instead of a receiver, or a tight end instead of a receiver, then you're just going for best available fit. But I like it. I thought they were going to go for one of the other wide receivers that's coming up on the board.
Yeah. All right. So pick 20. Arizona is back on the clock because of their spot their trade with the Dallas Cowboys. This was the Dallas Cowboys' original pick. And I went back and forth on this one. So they got Monroe Freeling at the top here. Should they have moved back up? Should they have taken a pass catcher option to help out the quarterback situation? What is their quarterback situation? That is hard to figure out here. I tried to find another trade back here for them to get more pieces because this team just needs players. I couldn't. So for that reason, I gave them Ty Simpson. I think it's still a little bit early. This is where, back to that original conversation, like 9 to 29 pick, if Avril Reese was still there from like the Chiefs, like might be more appetizing, even though it's because it's a lower pick, but getting Simpson at 29 right in front of the Jets, the top of the second round, feels like a better value if that's going to be the player. But no one fell. They get the quarterback. Jacoby Brissett didn't even show up to the first part of voluntary, although it is voluntary, but it sounds like that is contractual because he is going to go into the season being the starter and he wants to be paid like it or get a little more guarantees. So Ty Simpson, potential quarterback of the future, and we'll see how that one plays out. Big splash. What do you got?
I think it makes sense because I'm trying to see, like, it's very rare it happens, and this could be one of the draft that happens, that we only see one quarterback go in round one. This kind of feels like the draft that it could, but if it doesn't, the hot spots for quarterback later in the round would be if, Arizona moves down here, but even if they don't, someone trying to jump Pittsburgh just in case they potentially try to take a quarterback. I'm not saying that they would. They seem like they're in talks with Rodgers, but even if they re-sign Rodgers, it's not to put them out of the question of taking a quarterback. And then after that, you got a bunch of established quarterbacks until you get down to the potential, does Houston move on? And then the Miami pick later. So this does feel like a potential hotspot for, even if it's not the team picking at 20, does somebody move up to make sure they guarantee it over Pittsburgh?
Yeah, that was the ultimate factor why I didn't do a trade down. I did, think about, like, they got that extra pick from the Cowboys. Could they move that up later? Pick 34, move up 4 spots to get them at 20, at 30.
Yeah.
And, get 3 first-round picks when the quarterback being the last one. But we just kept this one simple. They took Ty Simpson. That's one of the ones that I think ultimately Ty Simpson ends up with the Arizona Cardinals. But if it's not till 34, I wouldn't be surprised and they take someone else or something like that.
Or like 32, so they move back in for the 5th-year option, because we've seen that plenty of times.
For sure.
I gotcha.
And the only other thing I would say is I don't think there's any chance Houston would take him. I know they picked up.
I know there's talk of Houston potentially looking at other quarterback options. I don't think Ty Simpson's the answer, but I had to at least bring it up there of like potential hotspots for quarterbacks.
All right, so this brings me to the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, some people might think this is a crazy pick.
Crazy picks.
Some people might love it. I mean, it is listed as their need here, and I am working under the assumption that Aaron Rodgers is going to be back. Even though they've said they have not heard from him yet. That doesn't matter. I know that their offense struggled last year. They lost Kenny Gainwell, who was one of their better pass catchers. They did pick up Michael Pittman. And I was thinking Michael Pittman on the outside, DK Metcalf on the outside. Oh, wait. Omar Cooper Jr., wide receiver from Indiana, would thrive in the slot. Mike McCarthy loves a slot wide receiver. Aaron Rodgers loves a slot wide receiver. So why don't we go ahead and draft Omar Cooper Jr. a little bit different than what, Pittsburgh is used to, but no Mike Tomlin there. Maybe it's time for a little bit of a change and not just go with a big guy or an offensive lineman.
It's interesting to me because part of it is I think that would be a great fit for the build of their offense, kind of like you said. The other part of it is if they're going to bring back Rodgers, you have to think it makes sense for them to try to make a run now. So getting the offensive weapon to try to make it work does that. The other part of me is questioning, though, does a rookie receiver fit that mold? Especially with the way that Rodgers operates, it almost feels like he'd rather have his less talented veteran receiver than he would his rookie just because of the way he operates. But that doesn't necessarily mean that Omar Cooper is like a no-go in this case either, and he should be a hopeful receiver.
Yeah, and I think the other option is like if Rodgers doesn't come back, and now you're going into the season with Will Howard and maybe a veteran that you pick up, like why not have the best offensive pieces around him and give him more options and maybe not think just one more year with Rodgers, think this long-term goal and build up the offense of pieces. So I think it could surprise people on draft people, but I like that one a lot. Okay. I'll go through my next 3 picks here. They all are on the defensive line. Defensive tackle Peter Woods out of Clemson goes to the Chargers. We know the Hardballs love the trenches. They're going to keep building those up. Eagles, they're going to take Keldrick Falk, edge player out of Auburn. They didn't re-sign Jalen Phillips. They're looking for edge help. He's still on the board. They're going to take him there. And then the Buccaneers, they're going to take Akeem Mesidor out of Miami as the edge rusher. I think they would take him at 15 before they traded back here. They might like him enough, not willing to trade back and risk it 9 more picks. I will say Akeem Mesidor is going to be a 25-year-old rookie. So
wow,
that's one of those things that
one of those players that are left over from the COVID age.
Correct. So, and he's very talented, high productivity, was very dominant. So I think that fits their system. He can come in to make an impact on day one. So I like that he gets to stay in Florida. Do you want to talk about your Eagles pick? Do you like that? How are you feeling?
I think I've just heard so much talk about like positions that I don't necessarily think they're going to take. I don't think they would take a first-round wide receiver. There's the dumb takes of like Ty Simpson falls to they're taking him and Jalen Hurts is on the hot seat. Like I think sticking to edge fits the way that Howie Roseman tends to draft, and I like Keldrick Falk as a fit there. I like all 3 of these fits. The only thing that I was going to question is, was there an offensive lineman high enough for the Chargers to take at 22? But I know the offensive lineman run kind of came and went for them.
Yeah, I do think like just looking at the board here, you know, Blake Miller, he's a little bit higher on this board than I think he is going to go. I think Max Iannacher.
I can also argue, though, tackle might be the least of their needs on the offensive line because they just had injuries at tackle last year, and they did make a trade at that position. Maybe it's more interior.
Yeah, so we'll talk about Iannacher here in a couple minutes. Okay. He will be getting drafted soon. I did really consider him to take him with the Eagles pick. Offensive lineman, kind of find that replacement for Lane Johnson. I know he came back, but they need the offensive tackle.
Yeah.
He's one of those like super raw but gifted, has only been playing like football for 5 years now. Like one of those kind of, but
sounds
super
like
athletic.
Jordan Mailata kind of pick.
Yeah. The reason I didn't is because they don't have the best offensive coach in the league anymore. Offensive line coach in the league anymore.
Yeah.
They moved on from him. Not saying they couldn't build up an Iannacher, but I was like, let's get that edge player. They want to compete this year. Maybe they'll look past trying to, you know, get involved in the years to come. So, or as they get forward. That brings us to the Chicago Bears, where I went back and forth with this one a lot. Is this too much of a reach? Could there be a trade down situation for me? He's a little bit lower on the board on the screen. I think he's higher in some other places. So just because I am still scrolling doesn't mean it's a bad pick. I think I told you about from like pick 15 to pick 60, you could convince me that any of those players get drafted at any spots. But I am going to give them the safety Emmanuel McNeil Warren out of Toledo. He has, still think he's still at a first round pedigree to him, is a small school kind of guy, might be a guy that ends up, you know, being talked about, but then falls to the top of the second round. Maybe the Bears try to trade back, but we saw how important the safety position was for them last year in this defense. They lost Kevin Byard. They lost Jonathan Owens. They get a safety on the back end to come back and play for that defense as well. So that would be that pick. That puts the Buffalo Bills on the clock. Now, this one makes sense, but I'm also doing it for the joke. Oh, no. Because the Bears are going to draft a wide receiver. The Bills. But of course his name's Casey, because they can't shake the Chiefs no matter what. So they're getting Casey Concepcion, wide receiver out of Texas A&M, as their first round guy to come in for Buffalo. So maybe it'll be KC to get them over the hump to beat KC. We'll have to wait and see. But I like him on the outside with the other weapons they have there as well. I think Joe Brady will pound the table for him. And then I talked about Iannacher, or the offensive tackle out of Arizona State. It fits the needs for the 49ers, although they did just re-sign or give a contract extension to Trent Williams. He seems like the perfect guy that could play in a pinch if needed to, but like go learn behind one of the best, most athletic big men, offensive linemen for a year, or make an impact down the line. So I'm going to take that one for them. Any thoughts on those three? And then I'll do the final four to wrap up the round one.
I like all three. I think Bears fans are probably going to go pound the table that you're just being biased because you're a Packers fan. But I'm sorry. I do think that is a good fit for them. And the safety, I think back end defense help fits for them, even though I do think that they need some offensive consistency. I think they might be able to find that in-house, what they already have. The KC Conception joke is great. Because, I mean, I'm just thinking back to when the Eagles took Dallas Goedert, who is literally named after Dallas because of the Dallas Cowboys. He's going to become Buffalo Concepcion if he does that, which is going to be great.
So I had to throw that in there. All right, so I'm going to go with the Houston Texans. They're going to take defensive tackle Christian Miller just to, build up that defense. That's what carries them. They can use the defensive tackle. I like that fit a lot. Now, this one is this is a high riser as of late. I don't think this board reflects that. This is another one I'm going to scroll down a little bit for. I don't think anybody is going to complain, though, if I'm completely wrong and the Chiefs overreach on a guy that is on this board ranked at 51. I think he's much higher. I think there's a good chance he ends up in round one. He's an athletic edge rusher out of UCF. That's Malachi Lawrence. Now, again, I'm having Miami pass on a wide receiver. They're not taking one in the first round because Jermod McCoy is still here. I told you those injury concerns are real. He might fall out of the second round. Jeff Hafley is a defensive backs coach at heart. He's their new head coach. They desperately need corners. They got their offensive linemen. Why not take a flyer on the guy that is recovering from an ACL injury that was the best cornerback in college football in 2024 and see if you can get something out of him in the Jeff Hafley system? I think they like that pick a lot. And then the New England Patriots, they are here. They are going to also take an edge rusher as well. I thought offensive linemen just because of how beaten up they got in the Super Bowl, but they already had two rookies. Do they want to throw a third rookie in, or I guess to be a rookie and two second-year players into that mix? Maybe down the line, but not now. I'm going to have them take Zion Young, the edge rusher, out of Missouri as they continue to get after the quarterback. Any thoughts?
No, I think they're all good. I think the McCoy pick makes sense the way that you framed it. Normally with players like that are falling, we kind of get a little bit of an idea as we get into like day of draft to see where we think they're going to fall. But I like the fact that you still threw him in the first round because there's definitely a first round upside out of that pick. Other two, I think just solid picks.
All right. And then I couldn't end round one without a trade.
Of course.
So you got to do that. Maybe a surprise trade too.
Oh.
Because I have the New Orleans Saints trading up with the Seattle Seahawks. Now, let me just double check what I was thinking for their pick here. All right. So Seattle, the Saints give up pick 42. If I can get my mouse to work again. 42, 73, 136, and they get back 32 and 96. So basically a little bit of a swap here. Propose the trade, almost identical in value. They come up here. They already got their edge rusher. Let's go get their quarterback some help. And the reason they're going to come up for a wide receiver, they're going to come up for Denzel Boston. I think he's a first-round wide receiver. He is a solid player on the outside, different body type than Chris Olave. I think he'll pair very nicely. And the way these wide receiver contracts are going, the fifth-year value, the fifth-year option is important for that position. So they get Denzel Boston here, come up in the first round, and that wraps up the first round of the grades. I'll throw the full results on the screen if you're watching over us on YouTube at the Couch GMs. Any big takeaways, or we can just jump right into round two?
I think I'll just react to the Denzel Boston trade really quick just because it's a good point bringing up that fifth-year option for wide receivers is becoming more and more valuable. Because we used to always in the past see people, teams come up to this 30-second spot to take that flyer quarterback. And obviously, if Ty Simpson goes at 20 or somewhere around there, that's not going to be the guy that happens to. And there's a chance if he falls down to 32, some team just try to do that. But there's a lot of people that I think Boston's been getting some hype lately. And even though like he might have been going in round 3 a few weeks ago, he's been moving up into round 2, closer to round 1. So
Yeah, I like him a lot. I think he is going to sneak his way into the first round or be one of those top 5 picks that you see all the time.
someone on the best available board going into day 2 if he doesn't go here.
Correct. All right. So we have those are the first round. We're not going to go pick by pick because we're already almost an hour in. But I did want to throw up my second round mock draft. First time doing a full 2 rounds on the draft, just because there's so many teams this year that you don't have making a first round pick, whether that is the Cincinnati Bengals, the Green Bay Packers, the Jacksonville Jaguars, Denver Broncos, in this mock situation, the Seattle Seahawks, the Indianapolis Colts, right? Like there is a ton of players not getting drafted here. So I'm just going to highlight some of the big takeaways. We did have a day 2 trade for the first pick, swap in New York. The Giants traded up from 37 to 33. They get Caden McDonald, the defensive tackle, another trenches guy, but replaces Dexter Lawrence. They get him at the top of the round. Since the Cardinals, recapped or passed on all the edge rushers, they got a TJ Parker as the edge rusher. And then because the Titans didn't take Sonny Styles, I gave them linebacker Jacob Rodriguez. And I just threw a complete blank because I saw Blake Miller. I'm like, that's a different name than I thought. But no, that is the right name. Blake Miller went to the Las Vegas Raiders there. I guess I could just read all the names. It won't take long to read through them, and then we can react. Cornerback Colton Hood goes to the Jets. They start to rebuild that defense, fills in the gap left behind Sauce Gardner, and hopefully gets them an interception this year. The Texans continue in the trenches with offensive guard Chase Besantis. Then the Browns, they add a cornerback, Brandon Cisse. He's not my favorite prospect, but he's ranked pretty high. I had to put him somewhere. This is the big move of the second round. Yes, I'm a Packers fan. Yes, I know this is a little bit biased. Yes, this is my mock draft, so it may have played a factor here. But they moved up 12 spots from 52 to 40 with the Kansas City Chiefs. And they take Chris Johnson, the cornerback out of San Diego State. If you had to ask me if there's a better chance Chris Johnson gets in the first round or the second round, after today, I'm convinced he's going in the first round. So I just didn't have time to change all the mock draft stuff. And he got here at pick 40. Good value. The Chiefs already got their corner, so they didn't need to take another one here, and they picked up a couple extra picks. The Bengals, they take safety A.J. Halsey out of LSU. That team was better when they had a safety like Jesse Bates. They already took care of the defensive line. They keep building the safety as well. The Seattle Seahawks make their first pick, Jadarian Price out of Notre Dame. We kind of talked about this last week, just needing another running back. They moved down. We're still able to get him. Finally, the Dolphins take a wide receiver, Chris Brazzell III out of Tennessee, a big, fast, just all-around wide receiver. I think will make a ton of sense. The C.J. Allen, linebacker, the Jets continue to add to the defense. Ravens take defensive tackle Lee Hunter at 45. 46, Anthony Hill Jr., linebacker out of Texas, to the Bucks. Colts, with their first pick, take Cassius Hill, edge rusher out of Texas A&M. And then the Falcons, they take cornerback Clemson, Avion Terrell. Yes, that is A.J. Terrell's brother. Their good brothers are going to be on the team. That'll be a cool thing. There was a couple other cornerbacks I was thinking there, but for the sake of the show, I thought it would be cool if they end up with the cornerbacks. But maybe they take a trade in Stukes, who goes one pick later to the Minnesota Vikings. Gabe, Jack, be careful how you say it, Jacus. If you call him Jack, you say a bad word. Jacus Edge out of Illinois at pick 50. It's around at the top 50. Safety Genesis Smith for the Panthers. And then at 52, the pick that was originally the Packers pick, I think the Packers might have had interest in a guy like Caleb Banks if he was there. He's coming off of a foot injury, might not be ready till July. But a big defensive tackle. I thought the Chiefs little bit more of a luxury pick in this sense. Might not be their biggest need, but thinking as this team gets older, everyone talks about Travis Kelce on the brink of retirement, but people forget about Chris Jones, the impact he makes. Getting a guy to come in, play next to him under his wing, I think would make a ton of sense. The Steelers at 53 take Kalen Rutledge, offensive guard. They go back to their interior roots. Then the Eagles here, they take their wide receiver, Chris Bell, out of Louisville. I like this fit a lot. He's coming off of an injury as well, but should be ready to go. Chargers, they go offensive guard. They take Emmanuel Pregnon out of Oregon here. You talked about offensive lineman for the interior in their first-round pick, but they get it here at 55.
Okay.
The Jaguars here with their first pick, they take offensive tackle Caleb Tierman, try to protect Trevor Lawrence. The Bears, they take center Sam Heck out of Kansas State. They lost their center. They did make a trade, but they also need a guy to replace. What was his name? I keep blanking on his name. I'm sorry. I don't have all the Bears memorized by heart. We talked about this last week. Jeremy Bernard coming in to replace the Juwan Jennings role with the San Francisco 49ers. So I like that pick a lot. Texans stay offensive line because they need it. With Jennings Dunker, hopefully one of them hit. Bears back on the clock at pick 60. R. Mason Thomas, edge rusher. Then we have Keith Abney, cornerback for the Arizona State, goes to the Saints in a pick that they picked, or in a pick they got in a earlier trade. Oscar Delp, second tight end off the board, goes to the Broncos, who need some tight end help. Josiah Trotter, linebacker for the Patriots, and then Will Lee as the cornerback for the Texas A&M goes to Seattle to round out round 2 as they look to replace some of their lost players on defense. Any big takeaways from that one?
A lot of names. I mean, I'm obviously the fantasy guy here, so I'm going to lean some of those. I love the Jadarian Price to Seattle pick. I think that could be an immediate impact and is a very good comp to what Ken Walker was. I think that'll be a good fit to just, plug and play right there. Chris Bozell with Miami finally getting a wide receiver. I obviously don't know how much of an impact he's going to make right off the bat because I don't know how much passing game, volume there's going to be in Miami, as you mentioned earlier. But I do think that gives them then at least one legitimate option. I do like the Chris Bell pick to the Eagles, especially with us, figuring AJ is going to be out the door June 1st or right around there. That gives them a solid option to rotate in with some of the vets they brought in to clerk behind Devontae Smith, and I think that'll at least alleviate that hit a little bit for them. It did a lot of defense, but I think a lot of defense is going to help. This is maybe not the most exciting draft for a lot of people who like the big boom picks or are fantasy players, but I think it's going to be a good draft for some of these teams if some of these defensive players hit. I guess the only other person I didn't mention here, Jeremy Bernard. That seemed like a match made in heaven last week, and I'm glad you had that match put together here in your mock.
Yeah, and I'm just looking now at like the consensus big board to see if there's any players, some people in the top that might not be, that I didn't mention. You're talking offensive players. There is the tight end out of Vanderbilt, Eli Stowers. He might go instead of Oscar Delp. It was a coin flip between those two. You'll probably see the name D'Angelo Pons a good bit on, Mel Kiper's big board, someone that's, talking about him. He's just short. He's only 5'9", 170. Like, that's kind of small to play outside corner. Like, I think he's going to fall because of his size, not because of his, like, he plays like a big corner. He just isn't. So I think he ended up falling a little bit for me. And then, yeah, those are some of the, I don't think there's any other, like, too big of names that kind of fell. Maybe some guys went earlier than you're expecting. But overall, I think it's a fun process and can't wait to get, 99% of these picks wrong come tomorrow.
Yeah, I mean, that's how mock drafts work, though. There's so many variables that it's very rare that even you get like a top 5 or a top 7, right? So I wouldn't make yourself feel too bad, but great insight as always, Cody. Love your mocks. Love doing this, and I'm looking forward to the draft.
In hindsight, I think I might have switched the tight ends. Just would be in a better fit to get Stowers. Now that I think about thinking about it and not like doing it in the moment, I think I would have probably taken him there over Oscar Delp. So you people in the mind or in the comments can let me know how bad that was. I think some interesting names still available. The third running back, we only had 2 taken in 2 rounds. Mike Washington Jr., I think will be an interesting day 3 pick. There's a lot of wide receivers. I think it's going to be a heavy wide receiver 3rd round, whether it's guys like Zachariah Branch. You have Ted Hurst. You have Antonio Williams. There's a lot, Malachi Fields, a lot of wide receivers I think are going to, pop up in this round 3 to kind of pick up on the offensive swing after we ate our meat and potatoes in rounds 1 and 2, and there's going to be a lot of flyers. No pun intended. How are they doing 25 minutes in? That was a transition.
How are they doing? They're not too great.
Okay.
1-0 Pittsburgh, but I appreciate that. That was a great transition. No, that is a great point, and that's honestly going to make it hard for dynasty drafts. I think we're going to be focusing a lot on fits and opportunities when it comes to that. And you and I are going to be doing a dynasty mock draft. So if you are listening in, interested in that, make sure you are subscribing everywhere and checking us out next week, as Cody and I are probably both oblivious over who's going to go in dynasty drafts minus after picks 3 or 4. And we're going to be building a lot of that database with what comes from maybe even day 3 picks coming up in this draft.
Absolutely. Hope you enjoyed this show. Again, a little bit longer, but it's always fun to do mock draft season. Enjoy the mock drafts. I'm jealous for anyone that is going to be in Pittsburgh watching those names, those moments. Enjoy your time there. As always, if you got questions, let us know why you're even though deep down that would make your defense better and back to being one of the teams that make the most turnovers. Those are my mock draft selections. George, thank you so much for giving your feedback, keeping me sane as I read a bunch of names. As always, we are live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch Thursdays, 6:30 p.m. Eastern throughout the offseason. I'm Cody Roadcap. That's George Kurt, and we'll talk to you all next week.